be moving forward after the acceptance email that we had sent out to them. I know that's why the team is gathered here. So I'm Piyush Kathisi, run business development for EON for the US. I know Frank and I have spoken a few times in the past, but sort of haven't been able to find the correct way to partner. So it looks like this may be a fantastic opportunity, and would love to hear about sort of the new developments for virtual film school recently as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Pierce. And just briefly about myself, my name is Dan Leoskar. I'm the chairman, co-founder, and CEO of EON, and been so since its inception 21 years ago. My personal background is I have a master in computer science, mechanical engineering, and never finished my PhD. And I guess you can call me a serial entrepreneur. So I'm originally from Sweden, but lived the last 2 decades here in California in Laguna Beach. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm the founder. I'm Professor Frank Chindamo, and I've been a professor at many different film schools, several different film schools, as well as a multi-award-winning filmmaker for companies like HBO. And I pioneered mobile video, putting movies on cell phones. With us also is our CEO, Lionel Simons. Lionel has been a master in business after graduating from the London School of Economics and getting a master's at Columbia University, and has taken companies public and private in the US and the UK. Robin Pribble has started as an agent at CAA and then became a head of visual effects on movies like Avatar. She headed up companies like, what was the company in New Zealand for Peter Jackson?
It's Weta Digital, yes.
Weta Digital.
I was in charge of all.
Do you know Sir Richard? I assume.
Of course.
Yeah, so we are good friends of friends. So I've been there a couple of times. They have a fantastic setup there.
They
in
do.
New Zealand. Yep.
All right. Philip Lunn created the software that we first used called Neuralize. Thank you very much, Lionel. Called Neuralize, but Phil's opened and ran about 5 different companies, all in the software space. Errol Ansitz is the partner with Jeffrey Gold, and Errol and Jeffrey are our investment bankers at Goldmark Advisors. Ivan Levine is head of writing and other new media ventures at the Royal Holloway University of London. John Holder is someone who's been in virtual reality perhaps as long as you have, Dan. He founded the Reality Center in London. So that's our team in a nutshell.
Excellent. It's a great pleasure, and I'm very honored and humbled by the team here. It's a pretty impressive group of individuals. Unfortunately, from our side, we don't have that many members. Normally, and as we move forward, definitely we'll meet our chairman for our nonprofit for education, our Professor Bertil Andersson, that is former chairman for Nobel Prize Committee, and also was president for a number of universities, including NTU, Nanyang Technology University, etc. So, and there's a lot of other people that you obviously engage with. As you may know, John Guerra, he's did Matrix, special effects, has an Academy Award for that. You may know Richard Staber, he was head of HTC Vives. He was the CEO for all their software there, and also quite famous from Google. He set up Google Europe, etc. So there are a few guys that may be relevant to meet at a later stage. It's unusual in one way because you were very fast with the application, which we really appreciate. But normally we would have gone through one step prior to that, which is go more in details what exactly the center entails, why we set it up, and how it works. Unfortunately, we only have, I believe, half an hour. So today will be brief on that. But really, what I had in mind is to maybe give you 5-10 minutes on the center, and then deep dive into questions that you have around, and how also explain how this grant program works, what the next steps are. Okay, so is that sound like a plan?
Yes. A brief introduction to us, Dan, would be fine. I asked all our people to submit questions that they would need to, that would like to ask. And so I've got a list of questions. So I will just run through those questions after you finish your introduction.
Yeah. Okay. So keep in mind that we have opportunities for multiple sessions. So for some reason, if we don't cover all the questions, you're also welcome to submit them in writing, and obviously we'll handle them as they come. Okay.
Right.
So very quickly about EON, we've been in business for 21 years. I've been with virtual and augmented reality for 36 years, if I calculate my simulation times, but what we are doing and what we aim to do here is a center, EON XR center that's modeled after similar centers we created around the globe in 53 locations. The one you see here is the one in Bologna. And what these centers aim is to do is four things. One is to democratize the use of virtual and augmented reality at scale for learning, training, and performing in various disciplines. Secondly is to have the ability to create localized IP. The IP will be owned by and controlled by the local partner, by you. But we do encourage you to share it for a fee if you want as a part of the marketplace. The third element of this is the ability to monetize this activity by providing this content we have about 40 million people that downloaded our viewer on the marketplace. So you'll have a venue for that. And finally, of course, we co-invest. So in this center here in Bologna, we invested approximately $21 million. And it was a private-public partnership. This is most of our centers historically. And the balance of 25%, about 6.7 million, was secured by us through a grant. And the grant was coming, as it normally does, from various venues. So in this case, here's the president for the university. That's the Minister of Digitalization in Emilia-Romagna. That's the region. That provided a 6.7. That's me. We came in with 21. This is the governor, the mayor, the local representative, and that gentleman is the American consul. So that's an example. I'll show you one more center, and then we go to the details. So the approach to this is has to do with this one actually is from Singapore. So I'll let her speak for one moment.
Challenges we face in undergraduate training are the need to ensure our students have those foundational skills, and they need to be able to practice in a safe space. And the way of doing that in a realistic environment is using AR and VR technology.
Okay, so here we partnered with NTU, Nanyang Technology University, that's ranked #1 in Asia, #11 in the world. We provided $21 million. We started with the medical department. The lady there, she's from Imperial. The Imperial College helped to set it up. And then we expanded throughout the university in various disciplines. Same time of focus, same elements that are in Italy. We, in this case, were able to expand within 2 years after setting up the center to basically most of the academic institutions in Singapore, including NUS, or if you're familiar with the Singapore and all the polytechnics. But more encouraging, after 3 years, we also, this helped us to establish our China and South Korea and also our Japan activities because of, the location, the central location that Singapore holds. So that's the elements that we hope to achieve together with this center, if we move on, as we move on, I should say. Democratization of XR at scale in your context. I mean, you have a specific focus, content IP creation that will be created and you own, access to a global marketplace for monetization. And when I say that, if you decide to publish things in this website, which normally I think you did say yes, I don't recall right now, then you get 70% of the money that's generated there. So, and we get 30%. And then also co-investment. Normally we go to 75%, but in this case, through the grant guarantee, we will cover 100% of the center equipment and associated costs. On top of it, as you know, when you enter education arena, it's not only about technology. So we also have a non-profit since a few years that focus on how to adopt this from a pedagogical standpoint. Professor Bertil Andersson is the chair of that. And if you don't know him, he used to be, I think he still is on the board of Imperial Technion. So other than being the president for this university, he also was the chairman for the European Science Foundation, Nobel Prize, and other things. So why do I show you this?
I'm a professor of biochemistry from
I'll
Sweden.
tell you in a second.
And I've gone from cold to warm. Since I lived 11 years in Singapore, and I have been leading Nanyang Technological University and the EU as its
Sorry, I pushed the wrong button.
provost and also its president. And I'm very excited.
So the reason I show the video is that he helped to put together a team. So at this university, he took it in 10 years from number 86 in the world to number 1 in Asia, 11 world ranking, by transforming education from the traditional way of learning that, you know, the lecture halls to flipped classrooms, where he closed the lecture halls essentially, and then to what we call experiential learning using virtual augmented reality. So that's so when he left the university, we invited him, and we were very honored to have him join our company as the chairman for the education division. And with him, he brought a number of people, including we recruited the head of learning, that now is our chief learning officer. So I would say we have both the knowledge in technology and also a knowledge in the pedagogical aspects. Now, with regards to academia in general, historically, this was used mainly for research. So if you go back 20 years, VR wasn't used in learning much. So what's happened over the last 3-5 years is that it's been really growing in the education arena. And but when we entered the market, we could see there were quite a lot of problems. One has to do with the learners today that are social, multitaskers, short attention span. Another had to do with virtual reality, with that obviously most people are using virtual reality. If you go to USC, they use it, but if you ask them how many people are using it, you can see that's very few. So 82% of organization never went to tens of thousands of users. They are never went beyond the pilot, I should say. And the reason for that, you can argue why that's the case. I would say there's 3 key reasons. No easy way to create content. Most people are not specialists and cannot create Unity content or Unreal content, although we support those engines. So there was, devices were too expensive. There was lack of content assets. And then we got this third problem recently with the pandemic, where learning has moved online and no ability to do hands-on. So that's been the problem. And then with that, I think I'll stop because otherwise we'll take too long time. But I'm just going to show you one more slide and then we can stop. So this to solve these problems, we released the platform a while ago in the first iteration, and it really has 3 levels. It has learning, training, and performing. So the ability to be agnostic on any device. 4 billion people have mobile devices. So even if you don't have a headset, you can still use the augmented reality, the mixed reality capabilities of the platform. And then you can publish this on any type of device. You have also access to a library that's more than 1 million 3D assets. And then you have also a no-code environment for people that don't know programming or don't know game engines. And that's, by the way, 90% or 95% of our users will never learn such a thing. But then for the ones that do, we also have the integration with advanced simulation capabilities if you have that knowledge. And then it's used for training. Training has been very handy now when remotely due to the pandemic. And there you can do procedure practice, virtual labs, and finally the performance component. So those are the 3 components. Okay. So with that, normally we would do a demo, but we'll skip that now because we want to go into the grant and your questions. And we suggest that John Green can set up, Piers, a deep dive session on the product and how that works and how we implement it and et cetera, et cetera. So that all that I'll skip for now.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. We're looking forward to that technical session with John Green, get us to understand it. In the meantime, we're trying to understand something sort of more basic, and that is we're not clear as to what E.ON gets out of this, what their benefit is. And
What's in it for us? Yeah, that's a good question. It's very simple. Let me just share that with you. So there's a slide actually. I don't know if you have received this presentation, but there's a one, why is E.ON offering this grant and what's in it for us? So you probably understand how the grant works. So a part of the investment comes from the E.ON's for-profit arm, and the other part comes from Learn for Life, which is E.ON non-profit arm. Are you clear on that? I assume. So the non-profit arm is something we've done for 15 years, and we are well established. We've helped many organizations around the globe. And their charter is to make knowledge available, accessible, and affordable. So they are satisfied when people actually are using it and it's at scale. The for-profit arm, that's the one I'm running, is interesting. It obviously has shareholders that expect return on investment. There's three things we get out of this. First of all, we open new markets. So we are already the leader by far in the globe in this area, but we are not in all locations and we are not in all disciplines, right? So for example, the discipline you represent is an area that we don't have a strong position at the moment. The other thing is every morning I wake up, through our partnership, we create new user-generated quality content, right? So one expectation, and that's why when you applied, there was a requirement there that you actually are willing to create content that you can then charge, put on the marketplace that we developed and charge a fee for. We don't mind that you charge a fee, but the more content, because this has plagued our industry, there's not enough quality content. And the last one is quite important. Seeing is believing. Provide hard evidence that this actually helps. And that's why when we commit for this, we don't only commit to provide you the licenses, etc. We also commit to provide 100% of the cost coverage to actually make this a success. I mean, all the knowledge transfer to you, because otherwise, if we just deliver the center and nothing happens, then and you're not happy or it's not utilized, then we fail.
Right. The another issue is we're unclear as to the distinction between securing a government grant for 26 million versus investment by E.ON, as you've just referred to. What are the probabilities of either one, and or what is the difference really between the two?
Exactly. So first of all, let's take a step back and say why E.ON is even considering and where is this coming from? Because so I think that will give you an answer on the probability, and then I'll go into the distinction between one and the other. Okay. Yeah. So if you look at E.ON over the last 2 decades, we've been consistently helping our partners. Not only, so normally what we do in a center is we go in, invest 75%, and then the local partner has to come up with a 25%. So in this case, in a normal case, we put in 21, you have to come up with $6.7 million. A lot of time, the local organization doesn't have that kind of money. So that's when we go to third parties. For example, USAID in Morocco, we brought them in. This is the US government. And US government has a certain chart. I don't know if you're familiar with USAID, but there we did a $28 million and then US government provided, $3 million, and then they brought in other actors to cover the cost on the local partner. So this is something that we've done for many, many years. It's nothing new. But we haven't earlier provided any guarantee. I mean, it was a best effort. We apply and sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't. Now, with time, we became more and more proficient. So for example, here in the US, we helped Los Angeles City College to implement thousands of nurses this year, where we provided part of the funding, and then the rest we helped with the care grant that the federal government had issued earlier this year. We did the same in Mississippi. There we helped them with $6 million. The governor got about $29 million for this extra education, and 6 of them went to the 2 largest colleges there in Mississippi. So this is something we've done over the years in different locations, whether it's China or in Latin America. We work with the Inter-American Development Bank. In last week we signed another big deal in China with central government in Beijing, etc. So this goes whether it's Kuwait or Switzerland or Spain, the same type of process. But once again, before November this year, we never provided a guarantee. Now, what's different? So first of all, most governments today and institutions in general are shifting their focus from pandemic to post-pandemic economic recovery, right? It's and many are looking at education, sustained investment in quality education as a key component. So, for example, I'm from Sweden originally, so in EU, they are spending 22 billion on continuing education, and even our government here, the president-elect, is committed, at least proposed, to increase a lot of spending on that. So we got two things. We have secured another $50 million now in investment from our Silicon Valley partners, and we have secured more money to EON Learn for Life for this post-pandemic recovery. So at the leadership conference on November 11th, we launched the leadership conference at the leadership on this program. So I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's normally held in Seoul. I've been there 3 times invited. And previous years, you've had George Bush, you've had quite a few other people you may recognize, Gerald Schroeder and many others. So this year it was all about post-pandemic recovery. We presented it, we were extremely well received, and we rolled it out. So now to the second question, that's the probability. So I say the probability is high, otherwise we wouldn't do it. But how does the guarantee work? Guarantee implies and is that whatever rain or shine, we guarantee the money. So first of all, you can't apply to this grant, as you know, without being invited, because you have filled the application and you know what it entails. We view the application based on what you filled in, and the committee that has reviewed it is led by Professor Anderson. He's our chairman for this program also. And the way it works is that once you get approved, then the next step is to, let's see, oh, 1 second. Yeah, so what we have to do, and today probably we don't have time, is to go through the agreement. So you're going to receive an agreement that provides you all the details of what conditions, terms, obligations are in conjunction with this. But simply put, if you agree to sign, then after that, EON delivers upfront the EON XR platform for 5,000 students, the internships for 750 students covered for 5 years, and associated required equipment. Subsequently, we do engage with governments, intergovernmental organizations with your support and apply for grants. In the event the grant is not secured within 9-month period, then EON Reality Inc., that's our company, a for-profit, contributes 19.6, roughly $20 million co-investment, same way that we always have done in the past in the centers that you've seen. But here's the new part, an additional nearly 5.4 million donation through Learn for Life. And Learn for Life, as I mentioned, is the nonprofit arm that EON has been using historically, predominantly in places like Africa, working with UNESCO, UNIDO, Kellogg's Foundation, SAFIPA, to help emerging markets. So this, and we've been recognized by United Nations, etc., for that. But we have not yet used it for developing locations here at home. But this year we are doing it for this one time hopefully in a lifetime situation that we try to address with the post-pandemic recovery assistance. So to answer your question, summarize, 75% comes from this entity, and the balance required for set up the center comes from Learn for Life.
Right, thank you, Dan. Next question is, the 5,000 students, it wasn't clear to us whether in what period of time or how many students a year, or whether that was a global figure over a number of years.
So it's 5,000 students per year during 5 years, but you don't have to utilize all of them. and it doesn't have to be limited to your organization. But so you have this grant covers the cost, all the hosting cost, everything required for the up to 5,000 students to use the licenses, the data, the voice of IP data, all this SAP licenses for import of CAD. Everything regarding
How
that.
do you expect us to get the first 5,000 students the first year? Because hitting the ground running would cost a lot of money to market it and support. And rather than gradually building it up, we're doing 5,000 year 1, 2, and 3, and so forth.
Exactly. I mean, we will see that when we do the kickoff, that we don't expect that this should be done in 1 year. You can see that we look at multi-year, if you can look at this figure here. So we sit down and see what's a sensible way to do it. We have a whole implementation plan of the center that obviously that will.
Right. So effectively, Dan, you are providing marketing support to do that.
Not really. I mean, we do it by nature because we've done it so many times.
Yeah.
But what we are seeing here, we do have, as a part of the initiation time, we discuss a go-to-market strategy and branding plan. We provide you with how to do workshops. I mean, for example, in January 26, we have 5,000 members at a user conference where we will probably introduce you as our partner if we by then have signed a contract. So yeah, you will get access to our global market, but we are, our main role here is to provide the technology, the pedagogical support, but not actively market your activity, because we assume that you already have a well-established brand name and your knowledge, you're well known all over the world in this context, right? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And sorry to interrupt you, but just, you know, I do have a hard stop in 1 minute. I will be able to continue maybe.
The balance of our questions we're going to have to send to you, but we'll also look forward to the instruction session with John Green to know more about it, because we have a number of follow-up questions to understand what's expected of us, what it is exactly you want, and stuff like that. So we've got a very clear picture of what our obligations will be, what's expected, what the goals are, whether you have metrics involved, a number of other issues of that sort.
Exactly. So I have a suggestion, if I may. Sorry to interrupt you, apologize. So
Yeah.
John Green will be able to provide you all a brief overview of the product, what it does, the relation, what is it, how it works. And then to answer the other part, what exactly is expected by you, will be easiest to actually send you a contract, because that is explicitly, it's a simple 23-page contract, and it explicitly addresses most of the questions. And then subsequently, we can have a meeting where we can answer any follow-up questions based on that review, if that makes sense.
Look forward to that, Dan. Thank you very much for providing the time.
Let me just
Oh,
jump in.
excellent. And I apologize for just designating 30 minutes, guys. But,
We understood that going in.
okay.
Yeah, look forward
Thank you
to
so much. So Pierce, if you can stay around for any additional questions, round off and also suggest next meeting. Yeah, go ahead.
Dan, we have the meeting with John Green for Monday morning at 9:30 a.m. PST.
Perfect. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
And Pierce, if you can stay around just for a little bit with Rick and to catch the latest questions. All the best, guys. Stay safe.
Thank
and
you.
looking very much forward to continue this dialogue.
We
Okay.
shall.
Be good. Take care. Bye.
So Pierce, another thing that's not clear to us, on the 250K or 254K that we have to put up after signing, how soon after the signing, when do you actually expect that cash flow to occur after the signing?
So we usually do the payment will be within 30 days of starting with the platform and the delivery of the platform and the assets. We do also have a financing options, which I can send over some details for you there if that's needed as well.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate that.
It's supposed to be we run it as an upfront fee that covers the 5 years, and that's the only thing that will have to be paid.
Right. Yeah. So we'd like a clarification of the whole financial transaction over time.
Fantastic. A lot of the questions, I'm sure I'll make sure to send over the agreement,
Yeah.
which details a lot of this as well.
Yes. And is any of the fee payable or could be committed out of funds raised as opposed to upfront?
Just clarify that for me for a second.
Well, we could go out and say we're expecting to get funds in from grants in particular, and if we get, can we, on the application of that grant, can we allocate a portion of that grant to the payment of the upfront fee?
Yeah, so we haven't done that in the past, but I'm sure we could utilize that strategy and then just decide based on when we actually start this and set up the center. If the timing works, then we could utilize that.
Right, because we're in a fundraising mode. What part of what Dan just said was not actually correct, so he's not fully familiar. We've been around for 3 years, and we've operated in a number of different countries, including Finland and China and the States, of course, and Singapore. But we're not a worldwide brand as of yet. And that's one of the things, obviously, on our goal. That's one of the reasons we're interested in raising this money, so that we can barrel forward with our VR program initially in the film industry, to be expanded subsequently to other areas of interest. We noticed that the primary focus of what you have done so far appears to be in the engineering field. And we're coming in the film field because we have world-class expertise in that. And once we've established that program, we are looking to expand it to other areas that we think VR education could be very effective and useful.
So in other words, Pierce and Rick, what we're going to do is we're starting in new media because there's a dearth of education in new media and YouTube and TikTok. And what we've produced thus far have been big stars in TikTok, big stars in YouTube. And it's a way for students to monetize their work immediately. You can be famous next week with those kinds of platforms. After we spread our way through new media and film related topics, then we're going to move into languages, specifically English as a second language. We've tested that with Columbia West College here in Los Angeles. We ran 2 courses with them. That went very well. So that's our growth, first 2 growth stages.
Okay, makes sense.
We're also going to be able to create stories for not just in the film part of this, but also in the language part of it. So you can create a cafe in London for a Japanese student to learn English in, but we can create stories and characters and actors and situations around that will make the language learning more exciting and more interactive. The same way we can create stories around any of your products and around any of your discoveries, around any of your students' success stories and things like that, so as to have a narrative face to EON Reality.
Perfect, and I think that makes sense. A lot of what you'll see is based around sort of mechanics, healthcare, K-12 education, and other things like that have more, tangible work around 3D objects. But I think this is a natural progression.
It is, yeah. I mean, humans crave stories. They've always craved stories from when we sat around the campfires as cavemen. So if we can add stories to, let's say, one of your underprivileged K through 12 students does something remarkable, then we can help tell that story, for example.
Fantastic. Okay, great. I mean, if there's any other questions, or if it makes more sense, I'll make sure to send over the agreement and further information, and then we can go through the session with John Green on Monday, and I'm sure that will be able to clarify some as well.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. We need
Feel free
need that
to,
understand the financing options and all that sort of thing. And a more detailed thing, which I assume will be an agreement as to what's expected of us. Frank, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just one last question. So our whole objective has been to create a virtual film school rather than a brick and mortar film school, which there are plenty of here in Los Angeles. You seem to be creating physical spaces throughout the world, and which is wonderful. But could your vision expand to creating a virtual space as one of the centers? Because we've taught this in Singapore and Finland and all those other places, and we'd like to have all those students come in, as opposed to, Los Angeles film schools are like 80% people from Los Angeles.
yeah, so the way it's set up is the center is a physical hub, but the licensing goes out to over 5,750 students. So those can be completely international attached to you. So you would be able to have students from all over the world joining in on your sessions. So you'll see from John Green some of the multi-user sessions, which allow everybody to join in. So you could have students in Los Angeles participating from the physical space, and then students in China joining in from their location. So the licenses are global licenses, and then you'll have a physical space as well.
Okay, all right. I mean, so long as you know that our target is primarily the US and the UK to start out with, but we want to expand. We have Robin can tell you all the different relationships we've got in China. We launched at the Beijing Film Academy and helped those students produce the first ever TikToks ever made for the Olympics. Were made by my students at our students at Beijing Film Academy, for example.
Yeah, so the licensing will be up to your discretion on distribution, and that's why this project is so heavily weighted in remote usage. So wherever your students are, they'll be able to jump in.
Cool. And will the contract tell us what percentage of the money go towards the physical space, what percent go towards the licenses, what percent goes towards marketing?
Yeah, I have a breakdown of all of the hardware, and then as well as the software I can send over.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Phil Lunn, you had some relevant questions. Anything you want to add? You're muted, Phil. Phil, you're muted.
I think you covered the questions. I think it's going to come down to getting this contract and having a look at what the details are.
Cool. Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you. Pierce, I have a more fundamental question, and I'm sorry if I'm asking this and everybody else on the screen has the answer, but is this one grant or are these multiple grants? And does the certificate of approval, which is what we've received, guarantee a grant or guarantee that we're sort of in a process with other potential grant receivers?
So this is guaranteeing that the money has been set aside so long as we come to an agreement after the next few meetings. And like Dan had mentioned, a large portion of that funding comes directly from EON. The rest we jointly go after for let's say government grants. If those are not secured, that funding will come from EON's nonprofit arm, EON Learn for Life. So that funding is now sort of set aside in a waiting pattern as we go through and take a look at the agreement and make sure everything is set and that this is a fit.
So was your question, Jeffrey, are we the sole applicant or are there multiple applicants and the funds will be divided between multiple applicants? Was that your question?
We have multiple applicants and funding available for multiple applicants.
You mean $26 million worth of funding for each of multiple applicants, or the 126 million to be divided among the multiple applicants?
That's for each applicant.
Right.
Pierce, this is Errol. Also a very fundamental question, and I don't mean this to be specific to virtual film school, but more about your business with the grants in toto. What if a company doesn't need 26 million? What if they need 6 or 10 or 5?
So we do have smaller versions of this grant as well. If that is if this doesn't fit, our primary interest is the larger play for the 5,750 licenses. We do have a smaller one, for example, that would cover 500 students. So that is a possibility if that's the necessary direction we need to take this in after. But in terms of EON's interest, it's better for us utilizing the bigger option, and it seems like virtual film school has possibilities to be able to reach that many people. But if not, we can discuss a smaller option.
Question.
Thank you.
Who is the license fee paid? You're talking about these 5,000 licenses. Who gets the license fee? Who do we pay the license fee to?
So that's all encompassing. So the 26 million in total will pay for the 5,000 licenses.
So there's no money left over to run the business.
So everything will run, like you will have EON training. EON will provide training. EON will provide continued support. And then
How do we pay our people, meet the marketing expenses and all the other business operating expenses that one would have to manage a business that's got 5,000 customers? I'm not clear on where our operating capital comes from if all the funding capital goes to the purchase of the license fees, and I'm assuming that license fee goes to EON. Is that right?
correct. It goes to the general funding of the 26 million to set up the center. Now, our other school partners will typically already have staff on board to run the VR and the creation of content, as well as the classes. So we're not necessarily adding to them. And as far as marketing and everything goes like that, EON can assist, but you would end up, continuing your marketing campaign. So with a lot of our school partners, they already have a basis of around 5,000 students that can access this, as well as faculty on staff that are ready to create content and run the classes.
So in other words, Pierce, you're saying that all 26 million that we get for this goes back to EON for the license fees?
So we pay on a per user basis, hosting, voice over IP, a ton of other services, hosting on Amazon AWS. And so that's where much of the funding goes to. If we need to restructure this and somehow pull funds out from the hardware side, maybe that's the direction we need to go. If this needs to be all virtual, we could discuss that. But yeah, currently all the funding is set up around hardware and then the software licenses. I know Dan showed a couple examples of our other centers and what those look like.
Okay, so we are going to have to make.
Any more questions for Pierce, guys? John, you've been particularly silent.
I'm looking forward to Monday's breakdown. That's going to be really interesting. I've just sent everybody an invite for that.
Fantastic.
For that meeting.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we we'll look for Monday's meeting. I'll send over some further information, and then we can gather kind of final questions, and we can bring my team together as well. Bring in Dan again and discuss kind of maybe if we need to restructure this slightly or how to move forward.
Yeah, the finer details. I think that's where we have to explore properly, so that we make sure that it's a great fit for you guys and for us.
Perfect. All right,
Thanks,
well,
Pierce.
appreciate everybody's time today. Look out for an email from me, and we can go from there.
All right. Thank you, Pierce. Take care. Everybody
Thank you very much.
stay on, please. Everybody stay on except Pierce. Thank you. Okay. Well, Phil, you called it. Phil, tell them what you said.
Well, I said that this grant is really about them, and they're using it to get license fees,
Yeah.
build this center. I've seen this before.
It's a marketing ploy.
It's marketing, and you pay them, and they have you as a partner, and that partnership is what they're out selling in order to get the center. So it's like you're paying them to help them.
That's right.
So that's, and there's no grant money that comes to virtual film school.
No.
And I'm sure that's available, right? There's post-pandemic responsive grant money available, I imagine. If there is in fact this money available, virtual film school could get this directly, I would think, So you don't need a middleman. But they've been doing this for some time, and this is their thing. This is how they make their business. They, and it's pretty apparent they've been quite successful at it in going around the world, partnering with some very, large schools and large, high-profile people, and all having a shovel to breaking ground on a new building, which is great, and they put money into building that facility, and then they put lots of computers in there, and everybody gets to pat each other on the back, and whether it, how it actually gets utilized is another matter. I've never been to one, so I don't know whether it's a buzzing active school or whether it's just a bunch of empty machines collecting dust. So
That's right, Phil. But
that it's a marketing ploy. They're making a $26 million sale of their software and hardware. Very little actual equity comes to us. On the other hand, they could be a source of, could become a client of ours, so to speak. You make a deal with them to use our film school for a fee with their various clients all around the world now for some sort of a joint deal. So
yeah, I mean,
I think that may be an approach we can make.
Yeah, because it's a market that they're not in, which is what you mentioned, which is actually really smart. They're in the engineering space. This might help them get into a new whole creative market that they haven't been focused on whatsoever. So that partnership might actually be a good thing, right?
Yeah, so I look at them as a possible customer to pay us to provide film school services all around the world to the organizations they've already demonstrated that they have connected with.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
I think that's pretty much what Robin and myself, we were discussing last time we met with Frank day before yesterday about that they really want to sell licenses, but they also talk about they now develop in Unreal and Unity, and that's certainly an area that I want to explore. I think yourself, Phil, Robin, and probably others as well, but because we're quite technical and we've been around the block, we kind of are identifying that it's not quite as straightforward. Hey, here's 25 million pounds, euros, dollars, I should even say. And they really do need to sell licenses for their software, which is competing very much against Unreal and Unity, and just the fact that they have made their devs develop in Unity, and they say that they develop in, or they're about to develop in Unreal 5, which hasn't been released yet, but I know there's early versions of it. It is telling that they really are, you know, everybody's kind of fighting for their market share, and we as an organization, just as Nanjing and other universities that they have, are helping, enabling. So it's basically that money is mainly for licenses, but who was it? The chap that was just on just now did point out that he said he put it in there a little bit ambiguously, but there might be some help for setting up the centre, and there could be some reappropriation of some of the funds. Obviously, that would be a smaller amount, but a small amount of 26 million is still might be just what we need. So very, very interested in exploring this fully in detail, and even if it's not directly financially helpful, it certainly could be a very useful partner for wholesale selling of our courses, etc.
Has anybody downloaded and actually tried their software to see what the state is? I mean,
yeah,
it's a platform, right? It seems like it's a kind of old.
Past, I've used it from I think before it was called EON, but it is quite capable and competent. It's a different metaphor. Gone is this games engine. It's the word game in it, because predominantly they were games. There is still gamification of education, but it really is more of like a digital twin type of engineering, AEC, architecture, engineering, and construction sort of thing, where you could also interface things like BIM management in there as well, so business information management in there. So it's definitely coming from that area. And the biggest thing that I've always found about EON is they do lack the creative, no, maybe not lack, they don't have the focus on the creative side. They have the focus on the engineering and mechanical side and that sort of thing. We bring creativity through students, through ourselves, through all of us. I mean, just looking at us here, we have a lot of creative firepower, and that's one thing that they definitely want.
I agree.
Excited to explore it. If we have to jump through a flaming hoop for them, and they give us some money, then yeah, well, I'm willing to consider that.
The flaming hoop is us giving them money. That's what they're after, and it's not just 250.
Yeah, but there's matched funding as well. We might get funding from somewhere else. I mean, if we ended up with a small seed amount of money, what was it? Something like I don't know, 5 or 10% or whatever. If we end up with that, that snowballs. They give us that. They guarantee the thing. We basically selling their licenses. But I think there's room and scope for something a little bit more unique, because they are saying that they develop in Unity 2019 and Unreal 5. So if they will or do, that's certainly worth looking at.
Well, I think that's very good, John. I think that meeting that's going to take place on Monday morning will give us a lot of the detail. The agreement we get will get us a lot of detail. And then I think we need to sit down, all of us, and then Jaffrey and Nero as well, see how can we put together a proposal that finds the gaps in this situation that we can fill in order to build a real business opportunity for virtual film schools in this situation that we can generate cash and marketing from. So we're better able to do that once we have a much clearer and detailed understanding of their program, and how, and the pitch that we should be making that they will be interested in. Right now, we don't have all of that information, except we sense there's an opportunity for us, different from what they were thinking about, but fits into our goals and objectives of building a virtual film school and moving it out into languages and other things. And I think it's an opportunity we need to zero in on it, with the goal that what we want to do is to get a business opportunity, get cash out of this, but not spend our money on it.
Let me say something that might wrap this up. In a drama, the hero gets what he or she wants, and it makes their life worse. In a comedy, the hero gets what he or she wants, but not in the way that they thought that they were going to get it, and it makes their life better. So that's the situation here. We only needed $500,000 to launch, and we only are asking for, in our entire Series A, we're only asking for $3.6 million. That's 12% of $26 million. So if there's wiggle room in that, which Pierce seemed to imply, then we can get everything that we want out of this by being good negotiators and have everything that we need to get started, to do the marketing, to grow the school, to get it to the 5,000 students, to do everything that we want, because we don't need that much money, if and only if they will allow us to have a very small center that is us renting space from the existing Columbia West College, which is what we've already discussed, as opposed to having to build a building and break ground and shovels and all that horse shit.
I understand, but Frank, they have an agreement already with LA City College.
Fine, we can do it there. They have a film school.
Exactly, but I would also like to point out that for these centers that you're talking about in China specifically, it's very important to have centers. They love centers. And they love physical space too. So, I mean, and virtual space. So these are things to kind of keep in mind. So I get what the why of it all.
Cool, cool. I've taught at LACC. It's a great school. The energy there that I've experienced has been great. Of all the schools that I've taught in LA, LACC is one of my favorites, to be honest with you. They're really, they're really out to help people there. It's not like a for-profit college. So if that was our headquarters, then that would be just fine. If we, take over some space there at LACC, that would be just absolutely fine. I don't know what their space issues are like, but it's a great place to work. It's a great place to be. And there's plenty of parking.
Well, it's easy to get to.
Pandemic.
Go down and somebody should go down and have a look at what their EON Reality Center is at LACC. It's in the nursing group, but just have a chat with them and see if it's been successful, what it actually is. My guess is they're partnering with Dell. Dell provides a bunch of computers, and then EON Reality donates, multi-million dollars worth of software, which they, 5,000 licenses of software gets donated to the LACC College, and that's their grant. So they're granting 20 million. There's no cash coming from anywhere. It's like, where's the cash coming from? And I don't see them giving a virtual film school cash. It's not about them giving money. It's about us giving them money. That's the way I see it. It seems pretty clear to me that they use these things, and it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a great way to promote the software, and you need a platform to distribute on. If they have a platform, you piggyback on that platform. But I love Lionel's suggestion, which was, flip the script on these guys, bring a virtual film school as a whole new potential market for them, and and have them understand that they should be investing in virtual film school, because it actually can help them have a whole new market and a whole bunch of new centers in each one of these things. The new EON Reality Creative Center or something, and they could go down another whole path in another whole division in creative virtual reality software. It might actually, that's a great idea right there.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things we've ascertained, at least from my perspective right now, is that this is not, as Frank and I were discussing, a scam from Ethiopia. Send me money so I can access my locked bank account and I'll send you half. what I think, as we're all, I believe, in agreement on, is that the platform as presented is not a fit, but there certainly appears to be significant room for negotiation to make this a mutually beneficial type of opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
And if there's one thing I am confident of, it is the negotiating skills of this team.
So,
Hopefully they're better than Boris Johnson's.
All right. On that note, I think we can close up shop here. As soon as the contract's probably going to come to me, you can rest assured that I'll be forwarding it to all of you, within seconds of receipt. And Adam Owens is on the road today, but he'll be looking at it as soon as he can. He's going to be working less time during the holidays. He's got a sick mom that he's driving cross country to go be with. So,
Frank,
yeah.
do you, whomever's in contact with them next, it would be very helpful to obtain a copy of that presentation that he was flipping through the entire time, because I have not seen that before.
Good one.
I thought it was in there.
Good one. There was one that I didn't see. I'll flip through again and see if it was in the stuff. I think it was linked at the top of the one pager. If you look at the one pager, there's several links in there. So look.
All right, I'll take a look at that again.
Might be in there. Yeah, there's numerous links in there. So cool. All right. Again, I'll send the contract out as soon as we have it. And the Google Doc, everybody has the Google Doc, so we can just keep that going and add questions in there. And then I think, Lionel, when you say so, we'll send them our list of questions. Probably best to do the list of questions after we see the contract and after we have the Monday morning meeting. Would you agree?
More questions. And I think when we need to be a bit smart, when we send the list of remaining questions, we need to put in stuff that acts as a precursor to a proposal and suggested negotiation on how we could bring additional market opportunity to them. Not directly in that, but to lay the groundwork for having that discussion. So we need to think about this quite carefully.
Well, I I think we all have faith in your skills, Lionel. So thank you.
Yeah.
Most of
Errol,
us,
just to answer your question, it is a Dropbox PDF of the PowerPoint presentation. I think it's the second or the third link on the one pager.
Oh, terrific. Thank you so much. I'll check that out immediately.
The title of the Google Doc is called EON Reality 25mm Grant Questions, and in that one page there, and that's where it is.
Okay, thank you.
great. Jeffrey, how are you feeling about this? Jeffrey, go.
Well, now I understand it, which I clearly didn't before. I don't see it as a negative for sure. I think that this can be converted to a positive, because at the very least, we ought to be able to get them to take their software, and to the extent that it's not completely usable for our purpose, at the very least, we ought to be able to get them, since we're paying them a somewhat substantial license fee out of this $26 million, to update the software so it's completely usable for your purpose. Secondly, they did say part of the $26 million goes towards hardware. Now, we didn't probe that. I mean, are they supplying customized laptops for 5,000 students? If that's the case, that would be terrific, because if we were out marketing to 5,000 students and we could say, part of your tuition, we provide a computer and software that you would otherwise have to pay for. So that certainly would help from a marketing point of view.
Oh, right, yeah, good.
Worst case is if we didn't get any part of the $26 million, we could probably from a marketing point of view, make something out of the fact that, we were selected for this very substantial grant.
That's true.
So I don't see a downside to this, and of course I do agree that we should get back to them with a proposal that gets us to where we want to be. And I agree, if you simply got 10% of the $26 million in a usable format, either by them providing you $2.6 million in cash, or $2.6 million in services that you would have otherwise had to pay for out of the funding that we're trying to raise. I think it's good. It's all good.
Yeah. Let me just say, one thing that we're going to be
definitely say that.
Go, John. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. There's a delay. We're talking over each other.
So one thing that I think we're going to be good at is marketing, because we're good at coming up with visuals, and we're visually oriented, and they're not. If you saw, everything they had was either slides of people at a convention, or people at an opening or working, or talking heads. That's all they had. So we're light years ahead of them in visual ability. So we can really provide a useful component, not just on our own level, but to the entire school. And we can really help them in a big way with that. So they should be chomping at the bit to work with us. John.
Well, I agree with you, but basically you said pretty much what I'm saying is that I'm sure we don't undervalue ourselves, but we definitely need to kind of highlight to them how much they will get out of that when we're hopefully negotiating, because he did definitely say that a small part of that money would go towards setting up a center. He definitely said those words.
Listen, everyone, I have to jump off because I realize I'm 9 minutes late for another conference call. So good meeting everybody. Before.
So much.
And Errol and I will work together on this and hopefully get something done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you all very much.
Yes. Thank you.
Errol. Take care. All right.
So Frank, and this is one thing I want to point out, because we will need some of that money to pay people. And I'll tell you why. How are we going to pay the teachers? If you suddenly, right off the bat, you've got 1,000 students, you've got to pay teachers. And you can't just find teachers right off the bat. I mean, these people don't just, grow on trees. So this is a very special, it's like trying to teach medicine. You have to have people that know it. So,
Lionel, you're muted right now. Lionel, you're muted. You need to unmute.
I want to answer Robin's point. No, Robin, paying teachers and all the other direct operating expenses comes out of the funds that they provide one way or another. We're not expected to start that program with 5,000 or 1,000 students without having the funds to do that. I think that's fairly clear. So the funds cover two items for them, software and hardware. The thing that he said that is a little bit worrying and that we have to resolve, and I think that your question really addresses, is that they've made these deals with people who are already in business. They've already got universities, they've got campuses, they've already got staff that they're already paying. And that's one of the things we have to dig into, because we're not going to be providing staff in that sense without having received the necessary operating capital to do that. So they're used to make, but if we make too big a point of it, my concern is they will say, oh, they're hooking up with the wrong entity. We're not in business. We don't have a facility. We don't have a current staff. and therefore, why are they doing business with us? So we have to come from the other end and persuade them that we're one of the best opportunities that have come along for them, because we can add a whole new market area that can generate a tremendous amount of value over time, in the same way that they have built up an engineering capability. They will, through us, be able to build up a creative arts capability worldwide. So we have to go at this from that point of view at the right time, which may be sooner than we think. So yes, it's a legitimate question, but I'm not really worried about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are no next steps really. We can close up the discussion, because it all depends on A, what gets said Monday, and B, what the 26-page contract looks like.
You froze.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. And
so we have to look through it. I'm not thinking, yeah, we've got to understand that contract, but at the same time, I think it's important. I think the meeting on Monday morning, where they're going to explain in detail what the process is, what the software is, what it accomplishes, what it does, how you operate, and all the rest of that. That's the hardware. I don't really understand the connection between the hardware and the software. I don't understand why the hardware is different from standard computer hardware. There are all sorts of questions of that sort. Who is going to plan to participate in that Monday morning Zoom meeting with John Green?
Well, you're looking at them.
I've sent you all an invite, well, to you, Lionel, to Ivan, to Frank, and to Robin for that.
Right.
And I don't know who else. Should we be inviting someone else from
No, I don't think so at this stage.
Yeah,
we
I think
are the ones that if anything of any sort emanates from this opportunity, we're the ones that are going to be involved in making it work.
Correct.
And whether it can work, and making the judgment as to how strong our case is to persuade them that we're the open sesame to the creative arts world that they're not in now.
Yes.
And that has to be our focus. And I feel very comfortable with that, and I'm quite excited about it, because they've got a worldwide platform that we can sneak onto. In this way. So, see what we can make of it. But it starts with understanding who they are, what they are, how they operate, and how we fit ourselves in.
You know what? If you think about it, the original conception of what we were doing, this is hilarious. The original conception of what we were doing was to partner with universities, right? They've already got a major footprint at many different universities. So that actually accelerates that aspect of our business in a huge way. And even better, as Phil said, I am willing to bet you that Phil is right, that each of those centers are underutilized, because they're probably doing a shit job of marketing that center as a thing that can be helpful to you, because they're not telling stories about it. They're probably not marketing it. They probably, and what I read in, Glassdoor, which I linked on our document, what I read in Glassdoor is that there's a lot of excitement for what they do, but then there's a drop off on it. So we can come in as a second wave, which is probably the worst analogy to use, but we can come in as a second wave on that and reinvigorate the center, as well as provide an alternate revenue stream. So, for example, the university in Singapore that they were talking about, well, I know for a fact that Singapore is a huge country in media, right? Singtel and Mediatel and all those sorts of things. You guys know what I'm talking about. So we would be quite useful to them. We already did something in Singapore and it went fantastically well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll all meet again. We'll all meet again on Monday morning.
we'll meet again on Monday morning. We'll
The
hopefully
useful
charge
session,
up.
as far as I'm concerned, I'm clearer now on what our opportunity is. And we now got to frame it in a way that we can make it work and negotiate a good deal.
Mhm.
All right. I'll probably, Lionel, just send, I'll call you after this, Lionel, but just to send them a thank you and please send the contract.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah. So I'll compose that with you after this. In the meantime, Robin, Ivan, John, and Grace, we discussed the possibility of doing the VR session now, but I think we can delay that if it's okay with you. Oh, John. You're a pretty snappy guy. I think we can delay that and come back to that after Monday when we have the availability. John, you cool cat, you. So let's shift on. We've got the
Okay.
Smart glasses before they're available.
So what are these, like Instagram ones, or are they any particular brand?
Gap.
The what? Gap. Oh, right. So do they record? Can you actually see?
The only one of two unicorns that are AR companies.